Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I was Attorney General, we have a boarding school in Wapton, North Dakota called Circle of Nations. And we accept kids from all over. And we had a young Navajo girl who was going to school there. And when it came time for her to go home in the summer, she told the supervisor that if she went home, she would be sexually assaulted by family members. She begged to stay at the school. And we thought about how could we protect her. In order to get her home, we had to helicopter her to her house. Now, I tell you that because we've got the double problem of serving and protecting the most vulnerable in rural America, but also in Indian country where jurisdictional issues are not clear frequently. And so when we don't see a priority being placed on victims and on protecting people, when that is the fundamental obligation of a government, we're going to be a little disappointed. And so whatever it takes for you to send that message back, that we are serious about this. Because you may not see it, but when we go home, we see it every day. And Senator Murkowski can tell you horrible stories, just as I've just told you. And so, we're grateful for all the work that you do, but understand this is important business. And so when it's not treated like it's important business, we get a little upset. And so if you, Mr. Chairman, if I can extend my remarks in writing, appreciate it, but I just want to make that point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to focus most of my comments on substance abuse and what the work that SAMHSA is doing, which I think is great, a little late, but we're glad you've been included on this panel. But Mr. Toulouse, how many law enforcement officers should we have on Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation?
Ma'am, I could not tell you a number, but I can certainly look into it, and we.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has those numbers.
Yeah,
so
okay.
you can look into it, but
Yes.
you aren't going to find those numbers.
Okay.
And I think you know my point. My point is that we have large land tribes, we have isolated rural tribes, and we have no law enforcement presence. We have no cop on the beat. And when you have no cop on the beat, and you've heard Mr. Roberts talk about increased presence and what that does, increased attention to recidivism and reentry from federal prisons, which I know you guys are working on, and I applaud that. But we don't know how many cops we need in Indian country and where we're going to get them. And when you say let's do memorandums of understanding and this collaboration, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in this room, at least this half of the room, who's ever tried to negotiate an MOU. I spent 6 years and got nothing done, and I'm not used to not spending that amount of time and getting nothing done. But it was a pilot project, and it relies on trust, which we don't have, between state and local authorities and federal authorities. And we have federal authorities who have jurisdiction but don't have a presence. And so we don't have a cop on the beat. This is an issue I raised with the FBI director. I invited the FBI director to come out. I think we cannot begin to solve all these other problems until we get a true law enforcement presence. And this is an age-old problem. But I want to focus on substance abuse because, as Mr. Roberts has said, and I think anyone who does this work, we know that we have a crisis in this country of substance abuse, but it is amplified in Indian country. And I want to tell you I am very much looking forward to your 2016 report. I think that'll be very enlightening. But during your testimony, you said there are 70 programs, and you're going to educate on where those 70 programs are. Did you ever think, boy, that's a lot of programs, and maybe we ought to streamline this and adopt kind of programs that are best practices that we actually have seen things work?
So those programs include a whole range of things. Some of those are federal programs. Others are programs that are exemplary, that are important for tribal communities. These are not all funded programs from the federal government, but we were asked through TLOA to identify the various resources that would be helpful for tribes. So these include education-related programs, include substance abuse.
But just exercising your personal judgment.
Sure.
Do you think, giving somebody a list of 70 programs and some are,
Sure.
this and some are that, that's really
Sure. It doesn't end there. So I appreciate and respect your question. What we do a lot is, in addition to letting tribes know what is out there, we do a significant amount of technical assistance. Literally, we can do on-site technical assistance with tribes to help them understand how to bring those programs together that might be useful to their communities.
I mean, I would have a little experience in tobacco control from my time as Attorney General, and I would tell you CDC put together best practices on tobacco control. Didn't mean every one size fits all, but it was a foundation and a framework piece. And then if you look at almost any good public health program, domestic violence programs, it started with the Duluth Initiative, and we were able to build on that and actually come up with a plan that really led to better outcomes. But with my small time remaining, I want to talk about trauma-informed and trauma-based therapies, because the things that we've been doing in the past to deal with addiction and to deal with some of the issues, I think the more we're learning about the effects of trauma, adverse childhood experiences on children, the more we know that we could approach this differently. What is SAMHSA doing to bring trauma-informed and trauma-based initiatives to the discussion?
Sure. So one of SAMHSA's primary strategic initiatives is actually trauma. And we have done a significant amount of work across the country, including with tribal communities. We've issued guidance on trauma-informed care, establishing trauma-informed care. We've also worked with multiple sectors on implementing these guidelines. We're specifically now looking at trauma from a community perspective, from a historical trauma perspective, and supporting a number of tribal programs that include those types of efforts to support historical trauma within Indian communities. Just about every single SAMHSA program that is funded in a tribal community includes those trauma concepts.
Yeah, and I applaud the Office of Juvenile Justice has been a leader in this area as well, and it's something this committee has tried to educate ourselves on. We had a trauma panel about a year and a half ago, and this could be a path forward for a different program that could lead to better and best practices. So I just want to raise that issue. Just want to ask the Vice Chairman and thank him for the work that his tribe has done. I think we are looking for models all across the country that can be adopted in Indian country to better protect Indian people. As part of your system, do you have drug courts?
We absolutely do.
And do you have difficulty basically getting wraparound services? Because the theory behind drug courts is treatment and the opportunity for treatment is critical.
That's kind of a long answered question. But I did want to comment that sitting here is not unlike sitting in a tribal council chamber as leadership trying to deal with all of these issues. And I find it very, very similar discussion. We contribute millions of dollars towards drug prevention, and it comes in many ways. It comes through supporting our education programs, early childhood development programs, our treatment programs, our court programs, our alternative sentencing programs, trying to find creative ways to deal with the ever-changing issues around drugs and addiction and what it's doing to our society. It's our society as a whole, and on Indian country, it seems more magnified. I often think it's because I know the victims. We know them. They're family members, they're friends, they're people that you grew up. They could be your aunts, your uncles, your brothers, your grandparents. And you see this, and you take an active interest in trying to deal with it. But it all takes money. It takes dollars to do this. And fortunately, my tribe's in a position where we've grown economically. We're able to contribute those dollars towards the membership. But funding that comes down through the federal government needs to have specific set-asides that tribes can access. Oftentimes, it comes down through states, and tribes see little to none of that dollars. It all depends on the relationship that you have with the state. You have issues that deal with how you're going to deal with violators, the VAWA Act. It gives us provisions to deal with domestic violence of a non-Indian on a reservation against a Native American woman. If that violence also included children, the tribes have no ability to charge that person. It would have to go to federal court. If that violator also included children and had drugs be involved in it, the tribes have no ability to charge that person for the drug violation. And so unless the federal prosecutor picks that up, they go uncharged, and they get away with that. And so some of those things need to be addressed. Of 6 of our cases dealt with minor children. Only 1 has seen justice because of that. And those type of things that I think that need to be addressed within the Act. How do we do this? How do we put the faith in the tribal court systems that are fully trained? In our case, our police department is Washington State Police Officer Certification certified, been through academies, been through training. Our chief of police has been through the FBI Academy, a tribal member. And so we have built a very strong police force, but yet we do not have full exercising of our judicial sovereignty that we should have within the lands of our reservation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Vice Chairman, and continue your good work, and we hope that the lessons that you're learning and the loopholes that you're exposing here continue to inform our decisions as we move forward. But good luck to you and your tribe.
Thank you.